Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Intentional Productivity Tips. I am Megan. I'm your very favorite strategic productivity partner, and I want to thank you for joining me today on USA Global TV and Radio's YouTube channel, where please remember to like, subscribe, and even be notified when new episodes drop. I want to welcome you again for joining me and thanking you. I want to welcome and thank you. I guess that makes more sense now, doesn't it? I want to welcome and thank you for joining me on today's episode of Intentional Productivity Tips. I am coming to you from Northern California today, where the sun is out, and we are excited because the last few days have been wild with storms and wind. So it is nice to have the sun out and the wind and everything mellow. And once again, I will say from Lake County, I am amazed at how community comes together in moments of big storms. But anyways, today I am so excited to join you on Intentional Productivity Tips, because today we are going to talk about something that's very important, as every week, but we're going to close out our holiday Sloth productivity series today. We have our 6th episode, and today we are specifically going to be talking about 5 productivity tips for staying intentional in 2026 for your productivity. So today we are going to again talk about 5 specific tips that are Sloth inspired. As you know, this is our 6th week talking about productivity tips with the Sloth series. This is our 6th week where we have been being inspired by sloths as we have looked at our holiday. Our goal for this holiday season has been to make them cozy, to make them productive, and to make them bright. And so as we are ending the Sloth series today, I want to give you 5 specific tips that are going to help your productivity. Again, these are 5 specific tips to help your productivity. So we're going to look at those today. So we're going to look at 3 things. 1, we're going to wrap up our holiday Sloth productivity series. 2, we are going to look at the Sloth productivity framework for 2026. And then as for the last 6 weeks, I have our 6th and final top 10 list of to honor your productivity pace in 2026. Again, these are 10 actionable items of how you can take and add to your to-do list, your holiday productivity series. So we are going to be looking at that today. And let's get started again. One more time, people have been asking me, Megan, why sloths for the holiday season? And that is a good question. And I want to say we have been celebrating this season with intentional planning and cozy cheer. Our goal has been to be intentional, to create the cozy holiday moments that we want. Because again, we know between the middle of November and January 10th, I would say there's about 3 million holidays people are celebrating. So it has changed and impacted our productivity. So over the last 6 weeks, we've been talking about what can we do to be productive during the season. And today we're going to say, let's take that productivity. Let's take those lessons we've learned from the sloths. Let's look at 5 tips that we can take with us for the new year. Why is it that we want to do this? Because when we think about it, why sloths? We can learn so much from sloths when we think about it. And there are 4 very, very good reasons. 1, sloths organize energy before moving. Sloths don't just move willy-nilly. They're not just moving hairy-carry. They're structured and they've got purpose. Can't we learn from that? Also, sloths do not repeat effort. They're not doing the same things over and over. They do not repeat or waste effort. They create repeating patterns and they rest without apologizing. Now, as we're moving into 2026, isn't this something we can take for ourselves? Let us rest without apologizing. Let us conserve, let us preserve our energy, and let us take what we've learned from the sloths and carry it into our 2026 calendar year in productivity. So as I've mentioned, this is the 6th week we've been talking about Holiday Sloth productivity series. And so let's look just a little bit back. If you're on YouTube right now and you look below in the comments, there are links to the previous 5 episodes. We started our series looking at week 1 with setting your holiday sloth pace, where we looked at productivities for 4 steps of how to set your holiday sloth pace. Week 2, we then moved into Sloth's Cozy Productivity Prep Fest, where we looked at how to prepare for the holiday season. Week 3, we looked at the gift of creating seasonal productivity traditions. When we think about it, productivity traditions and being productive and creating traditions is important. Week 4, we talked about year-end productivity. We talked about finishing the year, finishing 2025 organized, and we had a sloth-approved checklist. And then last week, week 5 on January 1st, we started out 2026 productively and calmly. We had a sloth-inspired New Year reset. So those are the previous 5 episodes. If you're curious and want to look, again, check them out. All the links are below. Today, our 6th and final series, we are going to talk about sloth productivity tips. We have 5 productivity tips for 2026. The entire goal with our sloth series has been to looking at how we're spending our energy, what our intentions are, how we are preparing ourselves, and again, that we're enjoying rest, which is very important. So today we are going to look at sloth productivity tips for 2026. And we're going to look at what is it that we can do to set our intentions. Again, last week we did look a little bit at intentions. So this week, what we want to look at is what is our intention? And I'm going to share mine with you. My intention for this year, it's not about projects. It's not about actions. It's about me and how I respond and how I show up. So one of my intentions this year is to preserve my energy. I'm not just going to respond, but I want to decide how I react. And again, I'm going to learn this from the sloths, because one thing we have learned from our sloth friends is that your pace is your productivity strategy, and we need to protect it. So that is my goal. And so again, this is why we're going into sloth inspired tips for this year. But my encouragement for you is that your pace is your productivity strategy. Protect it. Decide what you want your pace to be for 2026. It's so very important. Let's look a little bit and let's get started at looking at what do I mean by the sloth productivity framework. And when we look at it, one of the things we want to look at and say is that we have 5 steps to the sloth productivity framework. The goal with the framework is just like we look at the picture, the frame is going to put our year into place. So our framework doesn't have 4 sides like a picture frame, because it's not a picture, it's real life. We have five steps that we're going to look at for our framework. So let's look at them right now. So amazingly enough, our 5 steps also coordinate to the word sloth. So our 5 steps are: we are going to set realistic expectations. We are going to limit our starting line. We're going to organize our energy, not our minutes. We're going to time block lightly with breathing room, and we're going to honor our pace. When we think about it, sloth productivity is not about moving slowly. It is not. It is about moving intentionally, sustainably, and in alignment with you. When you think about it, if we go into 2026 and we're able to move in our productivity, our habits, our actions. Why do I say our productivity? Our productivity means how we spend our time. If we're spending our time intentionally and sustainably, I think intentionally is if you add intentionally and sustainably. Not sure, but in the book of Megan, it does. So that's all that matters here, right? So if we think about it, if in 2026, if we're moving intentionally, sustainably, and in alignment with what works with us, we're going to have a good year. So let's look at the 5 steps right now. Let's start with, our sloth framework starts with setting realistic expectations. Cannot say this enough, how important it is that the realistic expectations we set make or break how we are going to act and how our projects are going to go. Setting realistic expectations is going to make or break how your projects go. Some of you might be saying, Megan, you're being a little dramatic. I am very good at being dramatic, but in this case, think about it. If you go into a project or an action and you think you're supposed to, or if the expectation or the thought is you're going to complete way more than you realistically can, how do you feel during that? Miserable, right? Not positive. It gets exhausting. So let's learn from our lives and let's just start out. And let's learn from our friends, the sloths. Sloths never overcommit. They choose the branch they can hold. Sloths are doing one thing at a time. They are looking for that branch, and that's what they're doing. Can we not set realistic expectations for ourselves, right? When we think about it, sloth productivity wisdom when it comes to setting realistic expectation includes start the year with fewer priorities that are done well. I had some clients that I met with last week, and one of them, he had this list of like 50 things he wanted to do this year. And I looked at it and I was like, I think it's great you want to do all those things, but let's look at what's realistic. You hate to be a dream crusher, but it's important to be realistic, right? It is 2026. What can we realistically do? We also need to set expectations that support your energy, calendar, and capacity. What I mean by that is if you have a full-time job and you have a family and you have hobbies you're doing, that's great. But is it also realistically to think, oh, I'm going to write a book on top of that? Maybe not. Maybe, but again, we need to be realistic. However, or whatever projects you're going to incorporate into your life, you need to make sure that you've got time, effort, and energy for them. So we need to set expectations that support our energy and our calendar. If we want to do something, that's great. But that doesn't mean we have to do it right now. That means we will do it when works best for us. Again, we want to set realistic expectations. And then realistic doesn't mean small, it means sustainable. So sometimes when I talk to clients about being realistic with their productivity, they're like, oh, Megan, you're not reaching enough. Trust and believe, I am reaching to the stars and beyond. That is not the question. The question is realistic doesn't mean small. Realistic means doing what's reasonable and what you can do. And so we don't want to be small. Again, if we start 2026 being realistic, we'll be able to continue 2026 being realistic. So my question to you is, what expectation can you soften or reset for January? So the first step for productivity sloth going into 2026 is setting realistic expectations. The next step is limit your starting line. What does this mean? Let's start by looking at our friends, the sloths, and how we can learn from them. Sloths don't begin everywhere. They start somewhere steady. And that's what when we're talking about is limiting our starting lines. We know the options are aplenty. We know there are projects and things we can be doing. Just because it's an option and available does not mean it's something we need to do. So one of the things we need to do is limit our starting line. What we want to do, learning from our sloths and sloth wisdom, is you don't need 10 new habits. Pick one starting point. When I start working with productivity clients, a lot of times my clients will be like, what 50 things am I going to learn at once? And I'm like, whoa, you're going to start with one thing and then two things. What we want to do is limit our starting line. One of the great things I love about watching marketing and commercials and at the end of December when we go into January, new year, new you, do this. And people want you to do like hundreds of things. That's not realistic. So we need to limit our starting lines and say, this is what I can commit to. I am going to commit to meditating. I'm not going to commit to meditating and I'm going to go to a retreat and I'm going to work out 5 times a week and I'm going to do yoga 6 times a week. That's not realistic. And that is not limiting my starting line. Limiting my starting line is saying I'm going to begin smaller, sticking to it longer. And I'm going to focus on the first 1-2 weeks, not the whole year. So one of the things we want to think about with limiting our starting line is we're looking now. We're not looking at the entire race. The Olympics are coming in February. We'll look at them there. Right now, we're looking at the actions we need to complete today. So my question to you, what's your one small start for 2026? Then the third thing we want to do when we're talking about 2026 and our productivity habits is we want to organize our energy and not our minutes. Now, when we think about it, and this is someplace I have changed a lot over the last years of being a productivity partner, a strategic productivity partner, is really looking at, we've got our calendar, our days, and we have our energy. How can we get them all to work together? One of the reasons we want to say this is because our calendar habits have changed and our business habits have changed because of accessibility, right? When you think about it, in the year of 2026, we are accessible all the time. So when we think about it, we need to organize our energy, not our minutes, because life can be happening 24 hours a day, right? So what we want to do, learning from and this is organizing your energy truly is the productivity at its as a sloth's productivity at its core, right? When you think about it, the sloth organizes their energy. They're not limiting to the minutes or anything like that. In a sloth's world, there is no, okay, I have 57 minutes. I'm going to make it over there in 57 minutes. That isn't their world. So we need to learn from them and we need to say, okay, how is our energy work? So what we want to do, sloth wisdom wise, is we want to track what fuels you and what drains you. This is something that we've talked about before, but it's so important to get to know ourselves. When can we be productive? What is our flow? As I have said before, I'm creative at night. I am not a morning person where I can wake up and be creative. If I'm a morning person, it's because I'm going to meet with clients or have calls, right? It's not because my brain is going to be thinking in that way. So we want to think about our fuel, track what fuels us in our energy. We want to plan our work around energy rhythms and clock hours. I do know this is hard depending on what our jobs are. There are times when we do have to be available and accessible, but that's also when I say, let's think about how we're available and accessible. And when we're doing that strategic time or those actions that we need to do. And then we need to protect our peak energy moments for your most important tasks, right? So in 2026, one of the things I'm looking at is, what am I working on? Again, I have lists and lists like all of us. It's not about the list. It's about picking things from the list that are going to be the most strategic and the most organizing of my time, effort, and energy now so that I can get done with. So we want to think about how we're organizing our energy, not our minutes. So let's ask ourselves this question. When do you feel most capable or clear during the day? Something only you can answer for yourself, but important to answer for yourself. All right. So now we are S.L.O.T. We are on our fourth productivity tip, lessons we can learn from the sloths. And this is time block lightly with breathing room. Now, this is something, and I've talked about time blocking before, and I think it's a great feature. But when I'm talking about 2026, what I'm thinking is I'm looking at the year. I'm not just looking at the minutes, but I'm looking at the year, and I'm looking at our productivity habits. So one of the things when I'm saying time block lightly, one of the things I mean is, again, where we can learn from our friends, the sloths, is sloths keep a rhythm, not a rigid structure. And so when we're going into a new year, we want to think rhythmically about how we're working, not just be so rigid, right? So when I'm talking about time blocking lightly, one of the things that I'm talking about is use soft structure or anchor tasks, not strict schedules. Use anchor tasks. So for me, for example, where this works is like on Monday mornings, right? Monday mornings, I have my first client call at 5 or 5:30 a.m. Then I have another call at 10 that is a stand-up for Indelible. So one of the things that I'm learning is I have a couple of options. I could go back to sleep between the calls. Sometimes I do that. But if I want to be productive and say, hey, I want to start my new week, I want to be strategic, I want to have project time, I know that between 6 and 10 Monday mornings, I have this block of time that I am able to do all of my planning and strategic project work that I need to do on Monday or to get started for the week, right? So for me, time block lightly means I know I have an available block that I can do project work, that I can do planning work for the week. And so I'm going to use soft structure. I'm going to use anchor tasks, not strict schedule, because maybe there's a Monday when I'm tired and I can go to sleep. And hey, if I can go to sleep, I'm always going to do that. But it's important to, again, think about what are ways we can start to block and guide our time based on when we know we can get things done, right? The second, add white spaces so you don't burn out by week 2. Do not plan minute by minute. And this is, again, where time block lightly comes in. Also, treat your calendar like guidance, not a cage. If you need to move things, right? One of the things by blocking off white space or adding white space, one client that I work with, one of the things that he does on a daily basis is he does time tracking, where he looks at how much project time do I have, and then he starts to identify how many projects. So for example, if he's got 6 hours of project time, then he'll identify 6 hours worth of task time. Well, this is where we come into time block lightly. When you're blocking time, and when you're planning time, never plan minute for minute, right? If I have a 3-hour block, I'm never going to plan that I'm going to do 3 hours of tasks. Why? Calls are going to come in, something's going to come up. So this is why we're saying we want to time block lightly and we want to add space. We don't want to schedule minute by minute. We want to use these as guideposts. So as we're going into the new year, we're thinking of how are we guideposting? How are we guiding our time and structuring it, right? Question for you. Where does your calendar need breathing room this month when you look at it? Where does your calendar need breathing room? So for example, for me, going back to Monday mornings, right? So I've said I have calls between 5 and 6, and then I have another call at 10. So I can either use that block between, right? I can use it for project time, or I could schedule other calls, but I can't do both. So I have to think about how I'm going to structure that time. So that's what I'm talking about when I say time block lightly. Again, lessons that we can learn from our sloths, right? We're going to keep a rhythm, not a rigid structure. All right, now let's look at the fifth productivity tip that we can learn from a sloth, which comes with the letter H, which is honor your pace. Again, another one of the sloth's greatest productivity secret is that they honor their pace. What do I mean by that? When we think about it, we have more work than we have time. Right? There is more work on, my bet is, if you were to look at your to-do list, you have more work than time in the day. That's a fact. We also know in the year of 2026, we are accessible and we can work 24 hours a day. We could work any day of the week, year, any minute of the day, right? That means that if we can work all the time and we have all this work available, that we could just work all the time. Do we want to do that? This is where we talk about honoring your pace. Honoring our pace is beginning to say, okay, what do we want our pace to be? What does pace mean, Megan? When I say, what do we want our pace to be? What do we want our life to be like? What do we want our productivity? What do we want our day to look like? What do we want our calendar? Again, what do we want our life to look like? Do we want to be working 24 hours a day? Do we want to be working every day of the week? Do we want to never have time off and always be working? My hope is that the answer to some, or at least two of those three, at least two, is no, we don't want to be working all day. So honoring our pace means saying, we know it's available all the time. What are we going to do about it? How are we going to respond? And when are we going to be available? So that's when we're looking at honoring our pace. And again, this is a sloth's greatest productivity secret. They're moving how they move. So sloth productivity wisdom when it comes to honoring your pace impacts output much more than speed. How we're getting things done, if we're always trying to slam and rush, if we're always up against a deadline, if we have more to do, and if we're trying to do 4 things at once, we know that our pace is going to impact our output, right? Think about the last time you were rushing on a project. Did you stop to make sure that the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed? Maybe not. So we know that that pace impacts our output. So if our output is important to us, isn't making it a priority something we need to do? I know some of you are going to say, Megan, you don't understand. I have more work and I'm more important. Right. But that also is not the case, because we also know we need to focus on what we need to. We need to set realistic expectations, right? Slow is not behind. Slow is thoughtful. So when we're looking at our pace, if we're not trying to slam 5 things in at the same time, we're being thoughtful and getting one thing done. Is it better to get one thing done completely or 4 half-assed things? It's a decision you have to make for yourself. I know for honoring my pace, getting one thing done completely is more important than four half-assed things. It's important because we know sloth wisdom when it comes to honoring our pace. Consistency is more important than intensity, right? We know our intensity is going to impact how we're getting things done, if we're getting things done slower or faster or what. But we do know that if we're consistent in our habits and processes, systems and mindset when it comes to productivity, we know that we're going to be able to get things done. So when thinking about our pace and honoring our pace, it means how much we're doing, what we're trying to do, how many things we've got, how many of the balls that we're juggling at once, how many phones am I looking at, how many messages am I looking at. When we're looking at that pace, it is important for us to ask, how can we honor our pace? We know the world is going to want us 24 hours and keep us going. So we're going to have to say, whoa, hold the fort. this is my pace. So my question for you is, what does your pace feel like in this season of life? It's going to feel different, and that's okay. When we think about our holiday sloth productivity, it is not about moving slowly. It is about moving intentionally, sustainably, and in alignment with you. The habit, it's important to remember that. It is important to remember that moving intentionally and in alignment with your habits is the most important thing that we can do for our productivity. It is the absolute best way we can move forward. So we want to ask ourselves, what can we do to take time and look at our productivity tips for 2026? And hopefully we'll be able to take some of those lessons that we've learned over the last 6 weeks from the sloths and build them into our productivity habits. All right, so one of the other things that we're going to look at this week as we're closing our holiday productivity sloth series, as I have mentioned, each week we have had a top 10 list. In these top 10 lists, what we're starting to look at is, what are 10 actions that you can take? What are 10 things you can do? They're actionable tasks that you can start to look at. And so this week's top 10 list is 10 ways to honor your productivity pace in 2026. Because one of the things that we know is intentional productivity does pay. So let's look at our top 10 actions and top 10 lists right now of how you can top 10 productivity actions for you in 2026. Again, these are simple, sustainable habits that honor your pace and match the sloth framework. So we're going to look at those top 10 approved actions right now. Number 1, set a realistic January goal. It is important when we're talking about setting realistic expectations. 1, set realistic January goals. What are you going to do in January? I might not write the entire book, but I might write the first chapter, or I might write the first 3. Number 2, define your good enough standard. It is so important when when we're looking at our productivity. What is your good enough standard? Do we go till perfection, or do we go until another's expectation that we've set? The third action that we can take is choose one starting habit. One of the things when we were talking about limiting our starting line is we were talking about one of the challenges is having too many starting habits or too many things you're working on. So work on one and start there. Start on one habit that you're going to work on. For me in 2026, one of my starting habits is going to be how I close up meetings and how I track my time. I'm going to change my habits for how I've done that. Number 4, top 10 sloth approved productivity item for 2026 is you're going to label the first step. And again, this is limiting your starting line, where we want to label our first step and say, okay, I am going to finish this. So for example, for me, one of my first steps is I am going to finish a handbook for a project that I'm working on. I'm not working about the whole project. I'm going to work on that first step. Number 5, top sloth approved productivity actions for 2026. Track your best energy window. Again, as we talked about with organizing your energy, identify for yourself, when do you work the best? When are you the most productive? When do you think the best? And then use that as you're planning your day. Number 6, remove one weekly energy drain. And again, this is thinking about organizing your energy. But what's one thing you can remove or change? For me, it was time tracking. One of the things you'll see is I changed one of my starting habits. And so that is because of number 6, removing one weekly energy drain or changing it. Your number 7 top 10 sloth approved productivity action for 2026, add breathing room blocks to your calendar. Add blocks of time when you're not available. You don't have to plan that time now. It will get planned before it gets here. Number 8, use an anchor routine, not a rigid schedule. So when we think about it, we want to look at how our days go and how they're anchored and not be so committed to the minute. We want to time block lightly. One anchor routine that I'm changing is my morning meditation and mornings intention setting routine. So I'm excited for that in 2026 because it's going to be an anchor routine that changes my day as my schedule has changed. Number 9, create a weekly pace check. What I mean by that is identify one weekly thing that you can do to say, is this pace? Am I honoring my pace as I said I was going to? So set one weekly pace check. Now, I have had clients that do this via spreadsheet, that do this via goals. I've had other clients and myself. I generally know by Wednesday or Thursday how my week is going. It could also be by feeling. Ask yourself, check in. is this pace working? Do I need to change it? And then number 10, celebrate micro wins. In honoring your pace, it is so important to celebrate wins. Maybe it's, hey, I finally got a response from that agency. I needed one. That's a win. Maybe it's, hey, I finished my presentation. That's a win. When you think of the actions that we want to incorporate for 2026, these are 10 ideas for you. My goal isn't for you to do just what I'm saying. My goal is to take these ideas and then turn them into your own so that you are able to say, how can you make this your best 2026? What productivity habits do you want to improve for the year? So that is why today we have been focusing on 5 sloth productivity tips to build habits for the year. And then we just looked at 10 sloth approved productivity actions you can take to take control of your productivity in 2026. So now this has been me. I have shared with you. As you know, every week, my goal is that you are able to take away one actionable step or one idea that you have to be able to implement into your productivity schedule. So my question for you is setting your 2026 productivity pace. My question is your turn. What's your sloth intentional productivity that you let's start that over. That was more than I was able to word there. Let's say, what is your 2026 sloth intentional productivity plan to take care of you? What is your plan to take care of you and your productivity habits in 2026? My hope is that as you have been listening to me, as I have been giving suggestions, my hope for you is, again, that you're able to take at least 1 or 2 ideas. My hope is that you're able to take control of your productivity, because one of the things that we know in a fact is that intentional productivity pays. And we know that that's one of the things we want to work on this week, is make sure that you are, for this week and this year, you are taking care of your productivity intentions. You're setting realistic expectations and you're having a good time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am Megan. I am your very favorite strategic productivity partner. I want to thank you for joining me on USA Global TV and Radio's YouTube channel, where please remember to like, subscribe, and be notified when new episodes drop. I will be back next Thursday at 2 p.m. Pacific on the same channel, same place, and we will be talking about productivity. Imagine that. The absolute surprise of that, right? I want to thank you for being with me today. I want to thank you for being intentional with your productivity. It's a new year. You have some time to make some choices. I hope you're intentional to find out what works best for you in your productivity. And now, a word from our sponsors.
Ever dreamed of hosting your own TV show, sharing your story with a global audience? Now's your chance to shine. At USA Global TV and Radio, we make it easy for you to create, host, and broadcast your very own TV show. Whether you're a storyteller, entrepreneur, or industry expert, we help you bring your vision to life. With our exclusive interview, live streaming, and podcasting training, you'll gain the skills and confidence to captivate your audience. Our global platform ensures your voice is heard worldwide. Join our community of creators who are already making an impact, one show at a time. Step into the spotlight. Host your own TV show on USA Global TV and Radio. Book your discovery call today at usaglobaltv.com. Copyright 2025 USA Global TV and Radio. All rights reserved. Terms and conditions apply. To learn more, visit usaglobaltv.com. Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.